Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources, you send us articles, notes, whatever you've got, and, well, we dive deep. We pull out the key insights, the important stuff. Basically, it's your shortcut to getting really informed on a topic you care about without having to sift through everything yourself.
Exactly. Think of us as your guides through that stack of information. We highlight what's crucial, connect the dots for you so you get the real value from your materials.
Okay, so for this deep dive, looking at the sources you shared, we're focusing on horenu. Most of us know it as turmeric.
Right.
Our mission here is to explore what these specific sources tell us about it. You know, its properties, how it's used according to this material, and also, importantly, any warnings or things the source says to be careful about.
And turmeric is, it's huge globally, isn't it?
Right.
But these sources seem to dig into some very specific details, maybe blending traditional knowledge with a more modern look at its components.
Yeah.
It's interesting, too, right off the bat, that the material puts it in the ginger family.
Yeah.
Zingiberaceae.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Starting with the basics, straight from your source material, what is turmeric according to these documents?
Well, they give the scientific name.
Curcuma longa L.
Yep. And the common English name, obviously. But it also lists different local Thai names. Curry, which kind of hints at how widespread it is, integrated into local culture.
That makes sense. So why is it so widely used? What do these sources say about the science bit, the important compounds, faniman, as the text puts it?
Right. This is where it gets interesting, pharmacologically speaking. The sources really try to pinpoint what's doing the work.
Okay.
First up, and probably the most famous one, is curcumin.
The yellow stuff.
Exactly, that vibrant yellow compound in the rhizome, the root-like stem. The source identifies it as the key active ingredient.
And what does it do, according to the source?
Well, the material lists its main actions as anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antimicrobial.
Okay, let's break that down. Anti-inflammatory, reducing swelling.
Yeah, irritation, swelling. Antioxidant means it helps protect your cells from damage from things like free radicals. And antimicrobials suggest it can fight off certain germs, bacteria, maybe others.
Wow, okay. That combination alone, just from the source, sounds pretty powerful.
It's quite a profile. And it's not just curcumin, according to this material.
Oh.
The sources also mention essential oils. They're noted specifically as helping with indigestion, bloating, and expelling gas.
More digestive help, then.
Seems like it. And then there's a quick mention of dimethoxycurcumin and bis-dimethoxycurcumin.
Right.
They're listed as other compounds with pharmacological properties. So the source seems to acknowledge it's probably a mix of things working together, not solely curcumin, which is, a nuanced point from the material.
Good point. That shows some depth in the source. So, okay, we have these compounds. Let's pivot to the practical stuff. What medicinal properties are actually reported in your sources? What does this deep dive tell us the plant is used for, according to this text?
Yeah, the source is laid out pretty clearly under Concoct and medicinal properties. Let's walk through what the material states.
Okay.
First, digestive system stuff.
Right.
It says it relieves indigestion, fullness, bloating, helps expel gas, and stimulates bile and digestive juice secretion. Seems like the source sees it as a real digestive tune-up.
Right, covering a few angles there.
Then, anti-inflammatory uses. The sources mentioned reducing joint pain, knee pain, and inflammation linked to osteoarthritis. This ties right back to that curcumin action we talked about.
That makes sense.
Next, stomach ulcers. And the material is quite direct here. It says it can coat and heal stomach ulcers well. That's a strong claim from the source. Suggests a protective effect.
Coating and healing. Interesting.
Then antimicrobial effects. It's listed as inhibiting bacteria, viruses, fungi. The sources specifically mention germs causing acne, wounds, and certain skin diseases. So connecting internal properties to skin applications. Now, cancer risk reduction. This is one where we need to be precise, just like the sources. The material states curcumin has properties inhibiting the growth of certain cancer cells. But it specifies this was seen in laboratory tests, in vitro.
Ah, okay. Lab data. That's a crucial distinction the source makes.
Absolutely. Important to keep that context. Sixth, liver support. The sources mentioned it helps detoxify the liver, protect it from certain toxins, so the material views it as supporting a key organ.
Right.
And finally, skincare. It's noted for promoting radiant skin and reducing skin inflammation. Again, linking back to those anti-inflammatory and maybe antimicrobial properties, but for appearance and topical issues.
Wow. Okay, looking at that list just from your source material, that's a huge range. Digestion, liver, joints, ulcers, skin, even that in vitro cancer cell observation.
Yeah.
The source really positions turmeric as incredibly versatile, doesn't it? Affecting multiple systems.
It really does.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating, I think, is how this breakdown in your source material sort of provides a potential why for a lot of the traditional uses people might already know about. It bridges that gap, perhaps.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so from properties to practice, your sources also give specific advice on how to use turmeric, the 2단장건반차고사 section.
Yes, they do.
It's not just what it might do, but here's how you might do it, according to the text. Dosages and everything.
Exactly. And these specifics are really useful if you want practical takeaways from your material. Let's go through them.
Please.
For bloating or indigestion, the source suggests 500 milligrams to 1 gram of turmeric powder. So that's about 1 capsule or half a teaspoon.
Okay.
And the timing, 3 times a day before meals. It even notes using capsules from pharmacies, maybe implying a preference for standardized doses.
Interesting. Before meals. Why do you think the source specifies that?
Well, perhaps the idea is to have the compounds ready in the digestive system to stimulate those juices before the food arrives.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my speculation on the source's reasoning.
Makes sense. What about for stomach ulcers?
For ulcers, the source recommends 500 milligram turmeric capsules, taken 3 to 4 times a day, again before meals. That pattern is noticeable.
Yeah, did that.
And it adds use continuously for 2 to 4 weeks. And also avoid spicy food at the same time, which is practical advice alongside the regimen.
Right. Okay, what about using it on the skin?
For wounds, acne, or skin issues externally, the material suggests fresh ground turmeric or the juice. Apply it right onto the wound, acne, or inflamed area, leave it for 15 to 30 minutes, then wash off. So moving from internal capsules to the raw plant topically.
Got it.
And for general skincare, like a face mask, the source says mix turmeric powder with fresh milk, yogurt, or traditional clay, kongoba.
Like a paste.
Yeah, apply that mask for 15-20 minutes, maybe 1-2 times a week.
Mm.
The source states this specific method helps brighten skin and reduce inflammation. Tying it back again.
Those are really specific instructions, straight out of the source material you gave us. It goes beyond just benefits into actual suggested protocols.
It does. It gives you a clear how-to, according to the authors. But,
Yeah.
Evanas, and this is a big but.
There's always a but.
Well, the sources are careful to include important considerations. Tamkan, precautions for use.
Right, the warnings, essential stuff.
Absolutely. Understanding these is just as vital as knowing the potential upsides, according to the material.
Okay, so what are the key things the source material says to watch out for?
It lists several important ones. First, gallstones. The source advises against taking turmeric if you have gallstones.
Oh, why is that?
The reason given is it might overstimulate bile secretion. And if stones are blocking the way, increasing bile flow could cause problems. A very direct physiological warning.
Okay, that's clear. What else?
Second, caution for people using anticoagulant medication, blood thinners.
Yay!
Sobai Kampangal. The source specifically says curcumin may interfere with blood clotting.
That sounds serious.
It's a critical flag. A potential drug interaction that implies you really need to talk to your doctor if you're on those meds.
Definitely. Anything else?
Third, pregnancy. The material says pregnant individuals should consult a doctor before using it, especially high doses or concentrated extracts. So maybe cooking with it is fine, but medicinal amounts need professional advice according to the source.
Got it, Dr. Check Thirst.
And lastly, for external use, putting it on your skin. The source gives a heads up that it might cause temporary yellow staining.
Ah, the yellow hands.
Exactly. Especially in notes for people with fairer or drier skin. Just a practical side effect to be aware of.
Okay. So understanding the potential benefits and these specific precautions, both laid out clearly in your sources, is really key to being properly informed based on this material. Gives you the whole picture presented by the authors.
It really does give you the what, the why from the source's view, and the how to use carefully.
So to wrap up this deep dive into your turmeric sources, we've looked at what it is, identified key compounds like curcumin, walked through that wide array of medicinal properties, the material lists, digestion, liver, inflammation, skin.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the very specific ways the sources suggest using it, dosages, timings, even avoiding spicy foods for ulcers. And crucially, we covered the precautions detailed in the text, like for gallstones, blood thinners, and pregnancy.
And hopefully going through your material like this provided that shortcut you were after. pulling out those specific memorable details and practical insights directly from the source text itself, helping you feel genuinely clued in on this topic from your sources.
Thank you again for sending in the sources that made this deep dive possible.
And maybe just a final thought to leave you with, based purely on this material we've discussed. Given that range of uses described, and especially those very specific instructions, the doses, the timing before meals, the warnings, how might understanding these precise details straight from your source material change how you think about or even potentially interact with a common plant like turmeric? What other questions does this focused look at your specific sources bring up for you?
Keep exploring those questions. We'll see you on the next deep dive.